Greetings, comrade. I'm Aramid, and today on Spark Project we're looking at the AI-2, the Stalker medkit. Welcome to the video.
The AI series medkits can be seen across at least 3 video games, including Stalker, Metro, and of course, Escape from Tarkov. The nickname comes from EFT, where the Western players found it obviously similar to a square slice of cheddar cheese.
The information on this item is somewhat scarce even on the post-Soviet internet space, so we will have to do with what I could find.
The AI, or literally individual medkit, is a unique piece of Soviet Siberian-related equipment. To my knowledge, no foreign counterparts exist. These were developed sometime during the 1960s, for the use by Soviet civil defense, armed forces, and other institutions in case of the Cold War rapidly warming up. It is composed of a medication set meant for medical self and co-assistance in response to the use of chemical, bacteriological, radiological, and nuclear weapons of mass destruction, as well as mechanical trauma. The specific contents vary from model to model, of which there are several, but the purpose remains throughout: prevention of death and irreversible health damage within the first hours of a nuclear attack, or the use of other WMDs. Historically, the AI series medkits were a part of an attempt of the Soviet authority to develop viable means of protection for the Soviet people, that is, against rapidly increasing nuclear arsenal and other means of attack on the inventory of the potential opponent. Therefore, these kits contain medications that block, neutralize, or compensate for various NPC damage factors, but we'll get into the details in a bit. Today we're looking at the most common variation of the AI medkit, the AI-2, which was meant specifically for the civil defense. However, there are other variations, such as the older AI-1, the AI-1M meant for the armed forces, and the modernized AI-4 version. I couldn't find what amount of these was manufactured, but they are so widespread that I wouldn't be surprised if the amount was close to that of the GP5 gas mask, which almost surpasses 1 billion. In fact, many of the Soviet gas mask bags have pockets and compartments specifically designed to hold such medkits.
The AI-2 itself has at least 4 production types, 2 of which are in front of us right now. The first one is a 1970s model.
It comes in a rigid plastic case of the iconic orange color. On top, we see a medical cross and an inscription that reads "Aptichka individualная", the name of the item in Russian. Right below is an interesting series of protrusions which repeat on the other side of the case if turned over. They are designed for good grip to ensure swift retrieval of the medkit. This cool feature is present on all of the models of the AI series. The case opens on a pair of hinges if the latch in front is released. Inside, after releasing the clamp that pins down all the contents, we see an instruction manual, 9 subcases, and a syringe, all in their own slots. On the underside of the lid, there is a label with information as for which slot contains what medication, as well as slot numeration. The rest of the information is found in the manual, where purpose, instructions, dosage, and intervals are present for each medication. The instructions contain information regarding administration of the medications on both adults and children. The technical information is also on the manual. For example, this kit was assembled in February of 1974 in Kiev. Now, let's go more in depth on the medications themselves. The first slot holds a capsule syringe meant for a pain reliever. This is an empty training capsule which usually holds saline, but an original one would have promedol or trimpyridine, an opioid analgesic. It is an effective and widely used painkiller, but it is also a dangerous narcotic and is a controlled substance in most countries. The syringe is composed of a sealed capsule and a capped needle. In order to break the seal, the needle is to be fully screwed onto the capsule so as to puncture an opening. It was to be used for a single intramuscular injection. Since the late 1970s, the syringe was not supplied with the medkit, but handed out separately at the same time as the medkit. The second slot has a case meant for Taran or aprophene, an antidote for organophosphorus nerve agents, such as sarin and soman gases. It as well is a dangerous hallucinogen and also controlled substance. The case is labeled accordingly, OP antidote on one side and Taran 6 pills on the other. A single pill was to be used preemptively with the signal of civil defense, with the second one taken afterwards in case of a severe OP poisoning. It prevents the poisoning agents from immediately interfering with the nervous system function by essentially taking up the phone line to the nervous cells. Taran was extracted en masse from civilian medkits in the late 1980s, hence why this case is also empty. The third slot holds the biggest subcase in the kit, which contains the antibacterial agent number 2, sulfadimetoxin, 15 pills. Sulfadimetoxin was meant specifically to treat gastrointestinal disorders, which were the expected aftermath of radiation exposure within the first 3 days. 7 pills were to be taken in the first day, and 4 per day in the following 2. However, it also functions as a general-purpose antimicrobial agent, useful against infection of open trauma or pneumonia, for example. The fourth slot holds 2 cases of the radioprotective agent number 1, cysteamine, 6 pills, with 12 in total. It had to be taken in advance in order to work. By the civil defense signal, 6 pills were to be taken prior to radiation exposure, or otherwise as early as possible. If there was a second threat of exposure, 6 more pills were to be taken. But if used long after exposure, there would be no positive effect. It works by binding certain particles, which partially blocks and delays the damage from radiation exposure. The 5th slot holds 2 cases of the antibacterial agent number 1, tetracycline hydrochloride, 5 pills, that is with a total of 10. Tetracycline is a general-purpose oral antibiotic. It was to be taken in case of a biological attack or a threat of one. 5 pills were to be taken at once with the other 5 after several hours. It was effective against a wide range of biological threats, ranging from the common cold to things like the bubonic plague or malaria. The 6th slot holds a single case with the radioprotective agent number 2, potassium iodide, 10 pills. What is interesting is that it doesn't actually protect from radiation. Many byproducts of nuclear fission appear as a result of a nuclear explosion, one of which is a dangerous radioactive iodine. It can cause serious health damage and death by accumulating in the thyroid gland as a result of inhalation. What potassium iodide does is accumulate in the thyroid gland to its maximum capacity instead of and prior to contact with radioactive iodine, leaving no space for the latter, thus preventing such dangerous buildup. The first pill was to be taken in advance, usually with a civil defense signal. The other 9 were to be taken over the following 9 days, 1 pill per day. The 7th and final slot holds the antiemetic agent, etaperazine, 5 pills. Etaperazine, or perfenazine as it is otherwise known, is used to prevent vomiting by blocking the nerve leading into the digestive tract. Nausea and vomiting are common symptoms of radiation poisoning and are especially dangerous when using a gas mask, for obvious reasons. Etaperazine also serves as a mild sedative. It was to be taken as needed or as a single pill after radiation exposure. Besides having individually marked slots and tags, the subcases with medications are also color-coded red, pink, white, transparent, and blue. The color codes are the same among all variations of these medkits. The shapes of the subcases are also medication-specific and have different tactile appearances. These technical solutions allow the medkit to be used in low-light conditions or even in total darkness if properly studied beforehand.
As we're done with the early kit, we can now take a look at the later model, from the 1980s.
We immediately see the absence of hinges, which suggests that it was cast from a single form. The frontal latch design is also slightly different. While the rest of the outer features and inscriptions are almost the same, the plastic itself is thinner and significantly less rigid. On the inside, the clamp is no longer present, and the individual slots themselves are tighter. The instruction manual is printed on a smaller leaflet with a smaller font. These simplifications are a clear sign of an attempted reduction in production costs. All other features are practically the same, however. We have the label on the underside of the lid, which is identical to the previous one. The medications are also the same, and all the slots, numeration, color coding, and subcase shapes copy the earlier production type. There is a pain management medication, OP antidote, 2 antibacterial agents, 2 radioprotectors, and an antiemetic. According to the manual, this AI was assembled in May of 1989, also in Kyiv, on the Darnitsov pharmaceutical factory.
To be clear, the AI series medkits are not a cure to all of the health risks that come with NPC warfare. They were supposed to block incapacitating symptoms and prevent extensive health damage within the first days or hours of exposure. Their purpose was to facilitate the evacuation of civilians and personnel into safer locations where proper medical assistance could be administered. Generally, most medications present in the AI medkits, regardless of model, are morally obsolete, not to mention that all the contents expired decades ago. Ingesting anything inside could cause serious health damage or even death.
A way to revive an AI-2 medkit is to remove the archaic medications and replace them to your own needs. This could also be done for cosplay, reenactment, or even practical purposes. There are modern analogies to the AI medkits produced in Russia and Ukraine, such as the KIMGZ and AIMZ. However, the latter are based on common commercially available medications, are produced in much smaller amounts, and resemble a basic daily medkit more than anything else.
This is it for right now, but comrade, if you watched the video up to this point, I can only thank you for it. I hope you liked it and found out something new for yourself. Any comments, requests, questions are very welcome in the comments down below. Make sure to let us know if you liked the video and what type of thing you'd like to see next. As for right now, I gotta go do the next video. Bye-bye!
Крутые и подкрученные перцы. Только в свободе вас оценят и примут как родных. Никакого обязалова и идеологической пурги. Никаких утренних побудок и минимум сухого закона. Если ты настоящий сталкер и любишь вольную